Hi, everyone, and thanks for joining our webinar today. My name is Naomi Joannis. I'm an implementation specialist here at Amilia. I'm excited to deliver this training today on reconciliation with your bank statements. I hope you'll leave this webinar with a better understanding of how to reconcile and find the dates you need to complete this task quickly and with ease each month. Our webinar is being recorded, so you can share it with colleagues who weren't able to join us today or watch it again if you'd like. So today, we'll start with the timeline of your payments. From the date the payment was made in Amilia to the date that it is received by your bank. Keeping this timeline in mind, we'll walk you through the 3 key dates needed to then work your way back and balance out your monthly statements. We will then use these 3 dates, A, B, and C, to break down each step with you and walk you through the process of reconciliation. After this, we'll be applying this logic with a real reconciliation example and run through some tips and tricks at the end to help you with any exceptional cases. We've reserved 20 minutes at the end for Q&A, and after this, we will talk to you about our help resources moving forward from this webinar. If you have any questions, please ask them in the question section on your screen. So let's get started. Before we begin, I'd like to start by going over a glossary just to make sure you understand some key terms that we'll be using in this training today. Starting with your payment processor. This is what you use to process transactions online. This allows you to take your payments from Amilia and send them directly to your bank. Most of you use PaySafe as your processor. Then you have your EFT. So this stands for electronic transfer of funds. This is when your payment processor sends the payments from that account to your bank account. And lastly, your settlement amount. So this is the total amount of your payments before the payment processor fees have been deducted. So let's get into a timeline of your payments. Your payments can be made by Visa, MasterCard, or eCheck if you allow this. So let's start with our different key dates, starting in chronological order. Firstly, you have the date that your client made a payment in Amilia, which for the sake of this training, we will refer to as date A. After this, these payments are then sent to your payment processor, and of course, they will then be received by your payment processor. The next key date to keep in mind is the date when those payments are sent to your bank, which is what we'll call date B. And lastly, these payments are then deposited into your bank account on date C. These different dates, they can be as close as 1 or 2 days apart from each other, or as far as 4 to 5 days apart. So why aren't your bank statements and your payment reports matching? This can actually depend on a few different factors. It could be processing time, weekends, or holidays. This is why it's important to use these 3 dates to match your monthly statements and your Amilia reports. So let's review these dates and what they mean in terms of your actual reconciliation process. Chronologically, we're going to start with our A1 and A2 dates. So these are the first and last dates that the payments were made in Amilia that are included in your bank statement. You can use these dates to pull your payment reports directly from Amilia. Then you have your B1 and B2 dates. These are the dates that your payment processor sent the money to your bank account. You'll use these dates when pulling the payment processor settlement report, also from Amilia. Keep in mind, this report will only be found in Amilia if you're using PaySafe. Otherwise, you may need to log directly into your payment processor account and access this report directly. And lastly, you have your C1 and C2 dates. These are the dates that the funds were deposited into your bank account, or also the dates found on your bank statement. Great, so now we have our main dates. What do we do with this information? Let's walk through what we need to do with these main dates, and we'll start working backwards, identifying first our C dates, then our B dates, and then our A dates. So step 1 is starting with our C dates and working our way back. All that needs to be done to identify these C1 and C2 dates is to look for the first and last deposit made from your payment processor in your monthly statement. For this example, our C1 is April 2nd, and the last deposit made, or our C2, is April 30th. These are now our parameters for this month's payments, and now we can work backwards using these dates. Step 2 is to find our B dates. This can be found using your Amilia settlement report and using our C dates as a reference. So just as a reminder, your B dates are the dates that the payment processor sent the money to your bank. Also to keep in mind, this report will only be found in Amilia if you use PaySafe as your processor. So to pull our settlement report, take your C1 date and count backwards 5 business days to give us our tentative B1 date and to make sure that we're capturing all of the payments that were processed. This is just to be sure we're taking into account any processing times, weekends, or holidays that may have delayed the transfer time. We can use our C2 date as it is, which was April 30th, which is also our tentative B2 date, as we can be sure all of the amounts will be incorporated within this date range. So once we've pulled this report, we'll look under the EFT column to find the sums that match with our first and last deposit from our bank statement. Just as a reminder, your EFT is the amount that was transferred to your bank. So these amounts under the EFT column, they will correspond to a transfer date. The transfer date is what will show us the dates that the amounts were sent to your bank, or in other words, your real B dates. So here we can see an example of a settlement report pulled using our C1 and C2 dates as a reference. We're going to pull this report counting backwards from your C1 date, which in this case will be March 26th, and using our exact C2 date, which is still April 30th. So here under the EFT column, we can match the transfer amounts with our bank statement. Moving over to the transfer date column, you can see that it will show us the exact dates, which are now our B1 dates, our B dates. So now that we've identified these dates, let's pull this report again using these exact dates, which are March 29th and April 27th, so we can continue the reconciliation process. So now that we have a clean settlement report pulled using our exact B dates, we can find the first and last payments that were made in Amilia to correspond to our bank statement. So these dates will be our A1 and A2 dates. To do this, you'll click on the deposit amount under the EFT column, and this will show you all of the transactions that occurred in Amilia that fall under this batch deposit. So after we click on the first deposit that took place on our B1 date, it will show you a list of all of the payments that occurred in Amilia that are included in that EFT deposit. We will take our first transaction that occurred, and this will be our A1 date, which in this case is March 27th. We will then return to our settlement summary tab and do the same with our B2 deposit and locate the last payment included in this batch to find our A2 date, which in this case is April 26th. Now that we have our A1 and A2 dates, which are March 27th and April 26th, these are the dates we will use to pull our payment reports in Amilia. So we've identified all of our key dates. Now what? Before we reconcile, we need to first prove that all of our dates correspond so we can reconcile accurately. To do this, we'll start by confirming our B dates. We'll start by looking at our payment processor report and look at our EFT column. The total of this column for that mode of payment, which in this case is credit card, should match the total of your deposits for that type of payment that can be seen in your bank statement. Now that we've proved our B date, let's do the same thing for our A date. So we'll start by going on the Finance Extra Report tab at Amilia and pulling the payment summary report using our A date range. Using the information under the payment column, you'll see a total amount of payments that were made in Amilia, and this will correspond to the settlement amount on the payment processor report. If the total amounts are the same, we can be sure that our A dates are the correct dates. Now, something important to note when looking in your payment summary report is just to be sure that you are looking at the column that pertains to the payment type that you're reconciling. For this example, we're reconciling credit card payments, so we're sure to only look at the credit card payment column. So let's take a look at the steps we just took and recap before we put this into practice. So firstly, we found our first and last deposit dates on our bank statement, which were our C1 and C2 dates. Then we used our C1 date minus 5 business days to generate the payment processor report. This gave us our first and last deposit dates, which are our B1 and B2 dates. Then, using those dates, we generated a new payment processor reports using those exact B1 and B2 dates. Then, we clicked on the first and last deposit under the EFT column, and we checked the dates of those deposits, which then gave us our A1 and A2 dates. Then, to verify that all of our key dates are correct, we pulled our payment summary report using our A1 and A2 dates and compared that summary with the payment processor report. So now that we have all of our dates confirmed, we can reconcile our bank deposits by matching our bank statement total with our transfer amount, and by matching our settlement total with our payment summary total. So now let's get into the actual demo and put this into practice. So let's follow the steps that we just saw in the presentation, and we're going to start with opening up our bank statement, where we're going to identify our C1 and C2 dates by looking at the first and last deposits from your payment processor. So we can see here that our C1 date is April 2nd, and our C2 date is April 30th. Now that we have identified these dates, Let's pull our payment processor report using these dates as a reference to find our B1 and B2 dates. To find the payment processor report, you'll go into Amilia and click on the Finance tab, click on Reports, and go to the Payment section. Here you can pull your NetBank settlement report using your C dates as a reference. We'll pull this report counting backwards 5 business days from our C1, which will be March 26th, and use our same C2 date, which is April 30th, to generate this report. Just a reminder, this report will only be found in Amilia if you use PaySafe as your payment processor. If you don't, you can log into your payment processor account and find this report online. So now that we have our payment processor report, we're going to start by looking under our EFT column and finding the matching deposit sums to our bank statement. So once we locate our first and last deposit amounts, which are $1180.38 and $862.74, we'll look at the dates that these deposits occurred, which will give us our B1 and B2 dates. These are the dates that the amounts were sent to your bank. We need to pull the same report again now using these dates as our parameters. So now that we have our new date range, from this report, we can identify our A1 and A2 dates, which are the dates that these payments were made in Amilia. So to do this, we'll click on the first deposit amount under the EFT column. And in our first deposit, we'll identify our A1 date, which is going to be the date of the first payment in Amilia, which occurred here on March 27th. Then we'll go back to our summary tab in the same report, and we'll click on the last column under the EFT column to locate our A2 date, which is April 27th. So now we have our A1 and A2 dates. We can generate our payment summary report also found in Amilia. So we'll do this by going back into Amilia, clicking on the Finance tab, Reports, and into the Payment section. You'll pull the payment summary report using our identified A1 and A2 dates, so that would be the 27th to the 27th. So now we want to verify if the dates that we've identified are accurate. To do this, we'll start by verifying our B dates. So we'll go back into our bank statement, and we're going to add up all of the sums of our credit card deposits for that month. And we're going to confirm that this total here matches the EFT total in our NetBank settlement report. So when we scroll to the EFT column in our NetBank settlement report, we can see that the total is $44,031.39. This is going to be the sum of all of our deposits in our bank statement. So now we can confirm that our B dates are correct. So once this is done, we can find out if our A dates are correct as well. So let's start by looking at the NetBank settlement report, so the same report that we have pulled up, and we're going to scroll over to the settlements column. So we can see here that our total is $45,627.12. And we need to make sure that this total matches with our payment summary report on the credit card line, which is also $45,627.12. So we can see here that these totals match, and we can use the reports pulled to now complete our bank reconciliation process. Sometimes, however, these reports may not match up on our first try. This is almost always due to the A date, or the date that the transaction occurred in Amilia that was pulled in the process. This date can be off due to batch times, which can make a payment that occurred on the same day in Amilia arrive in your payment processor account at 2 different dates. So how can we then determine how to find the actual dates that we need? So to show an example of how to troubleshoot this scenario, let's take a look at a similar report payment after we've confirmed our B dates, but not yet our A dates. So let's open up this new report. And in this new payment summary report, we can see that the total for credit card payments, which is $46,971.47, doesn't match with our settlement amount total, which is still $45,627 under our settlement column. So in this case, we know that our A dates are wrong. To investigate, we're going to start by looking at all of the transactions that occurred in our EFT from this same report. So we'll scroll over to our EFT column, and we're going to click on the last transaction that occurred in this batch. We're going to focus on the amount total and the CAOP ID to identify each payment. So we can see here that our CAOP ID is 18, and the total amount is $25. So let's go back to our payment summary report, and we're going to click on the credit card tab and look for the matching CAOP ID and the amount. So in this example, we can see that the last payment included in the NetBank settlement report with the same CAOP ID and the same $25 amount actually occurred on the 25th of April, but we were using the 26th of April as our A2 date. So now if we go back into Amilia and we'll pull a new payment summary report with our actual new A1 and A2 dates, our new A2 date being April 25th, we will be able to match the totals of our settlement and credit card summary columns. So we can see here that our total is $45,627. And if we go back to our payment processor report under the settlement column, we'll be able to see here that we can now match these amounts. So now when we need to reconcile, we can pull our payment summary report, match this with our NetBank settlement column, and we can still match our EFT column with our bank statement deposits. So let's get into some tips and tricks. So keep in mind, if you have two deposits from the same day, one will be your e-check deposits and the other will be your credit card deposits. Another tip, so you may see different deposits on your payment processor report versus your bank statement. This is just due to a rounding up of cents between the NetBank's report and Amilia. Another tip, on the NetBank's report, if you see a line in red font of a few cents that's not shown on your bank statement, this is caused by a rounding off of tax amounts and can be disregarded. Another tip to know is that your payments are batched by your processor 2 times a day. This means that payments made on the same day can show up in 2 different deposits or days. You can see here on the screen the different batch times. Additionally, you may notice on your NetBank's report that you have 2 deposits on separate lines that in your bank statement are shown together in one. This is normal and it won't throw off your totals. And then, once you've found your 3 sets of dates the first time, you'll know automatically which day that you need to start on your following month. For example, if your date range finishes on May 30th, the next month your start date will be May 31st. And finishing off with a bit of good news, whether you're doing cash or accrual accounting, you can reconcile your accounts by following these same ABC steps. So any questions that were asked during the live webinar, these will be sent to you via email in the upcoming few days. And I would like to thank everyone for attending our webinar today. Any unanswered questions, as I said, these will be addressed over email in the next few days. If you think of any other questions, you can always contact our customer care team at support@amilia.com. And if you feel you'd like more personal training or one-on-one training on this process, you can always purchase this personalized training and set this up by emailing csm@amilia.com. So all attendees will receive an email over the next few days, including a link for the recorded version of this webinar with a document outlining these reconciliation steps and other additional resources. You can also find documentation on this reconciliation process in our Help Center that you can find by clicking on the question mark at the bottom right-hand side of your Amilia account. Thank you everyone for taking the time to attend this, and I hope this was helpful for you.